Hey everyone, so a quick update on Onions Reduce Aggro. I am still working on this. There's just been a couple impediments. One, as I mentioned, return to office, so I don't have as much free time as I used to. And sometimes when I get from home from work, I kind of just want to relax and haven't quite had the mental fortitude to apply myself to this as much as I should. And two, to make matters worse is that I'm now in the final rewrite stage because, as I mentioned, in the early stages of making a game, you have your placeholder code, basically something that works, and then that's it, you move on. Now, it's good if that is scalable, but if it's not, then you have to kind of start from scratch other than the core principles. So that's where I am. I'm in that rewriting stage where I really have to apply myself and get good, scalable code, but also that's not really that interesting of content, I think. That we're at the point where the code rewriting is highly specific to what I'm doing, and I don't think will necessarily help you other than the broad strokes, which I will cover, like transitioning away from IEnumerator and using InvokeRepeating instead. That will be the main thing that we will cover. Shout out to Tech Dave to make that recommendation a couple months ago. So that's basically where we're going. I am still buying assets as luck would have it. Just a couple of days ago on the asset store, a new asset package showed up for customers and vendors. So there's all kinds of sitting, eating, drinking animations. So I'll be picking that up and adding that, probably not to the playable demo early access version. That will probably be in the final version, because again, the early access playable demo version is basically to get a feel for how many people are even interested in purchasing a game like this, because like I said, it will be at a discount, and then those funds will be used to purchase the rest of the assets. Okay, so let's run this, and then I will point out the new functionality that's in place because of the code rewrite, and then I will show you that code rewrite. Okay, so we have almost fully integrated the vendor system into the kitchen. Previously, you were manually making the meals and you would automatically get ingredients. Now that's been flipped. You have to manually choose which ingredients are going to be added, and then it will automatically result in new menu items. There will eventually be a difficulty setting, and that you will need to do both, but for various game balance and game design reasons, this is easier to handle than the other system I was working, but people should have the option to be able to make something really goofy and no one orders it. That's part of the challenge. But again, there'll probably be a difficulty slider where you'll have that. So I haven't deleted that functionality. You just don't have access to it in this current build. So let's grab some of the ingredients. And right now you can see this is not reducing where it says remaining gold. I have this unlocked for demonstrative purposes. So we'll say done. This automatically then tells you what menu items have been unlocked. I might even give more indication as to who is interested in it. Like the newbie single, it's just a single patty. So you're thinking of new players who don't have a lot of gold yet, and so they would order something like that. Again, keeping with the RPG MMO theme. So we'll click on Start Day. Now, as you can see, the only ingredients that show up are the ones that you specifically purchased. I hadn't done that up to that point, so that's new functionality. She places an order. Now, I'm not going to fill the order because I want you to see how the queue system works, because what's going to happen is only one character will show up per plate, and then no one else will show up. I didn't have that before. Even with IEnumerator, there were just overt delays, all those wait 4 seconds. Well, what happened is if you sat here and did nothing, eventually more characters would show up and stand on top of each other. So I was able to put functionality in here that was no longer that was not here before. So we'll just keep waiting, and they're definitely determined. They really want these hamburgers because, as you can see, they waited overnight, and now it's Tuesday, and they're still waiting on the hamburger. So really good menu items. Anyways, so we'll just let this play a little bit longer so you can see that no one else is showing up. And then when we empty one of the plates, someone will indeed show up. So she's been here the longest. And by the way, you can serve an empty plate. I will eventually put in functionality that at the end of the week, that's when you're going to have a check to say, or should I say there'll be an adjustment where you weren't actually paid if you didn't give people the right order. And if everything's working as intended, Another character will show up in a few seconds. I think the delay is like 13 seconds. Yeah, there we go. So depending on how far you were through that 13 seconds depends on what someone else is showing. So could I put something in place where they automatically despawn after a certain amount of time? Yes, it's a little bit trickier than what I hoped. I was looking at that option, but even with them not despawning, that is still a penalty in of itself because more characters won't show up. So if you only let these 3 people and you don't serve anyone other than them, then obviously that in itself is a penalty. You won't have as much gold, and then you won't be able to buy as many ingredients, and you won't be able to progress as far. Okay, so all right, so you saw the new functionality there. Now let's take a look at the coding to see how this works. So as I mentioned, Tech Dave was the one who called out using invoke repeating. So as far as what that looks like, it's that simple. So it's just invoke repeating, and you put this in the start section. The name of the function, so that's the custom function that I made, and it will execute that. And then this is the initial delay, and then this is the delay between iterations, or cycles. So this is something that IEnumerator does not have, a way of doing a one-off delay, an initial delay before you begin. You'd have to do something like have a second IEnumerator return a routine. It does the initial delay. It then references the main routine, and then that routine repeats itself. And that's kind of messy. And that was the one things that Tech Dave pointed out is that by doing this, it's much cleaner. So this has a built-in delay and then initial delay, and then this is the repeating delay. So when you get into a IEnumerator coroutine, you see things like this. Wait, 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 wait. So here you only have one. So it's much cleaner, much more concise code. Now, I will say that if you're trying to have something with exact timing, like maybe this is kind of, I don't want to say a cinema, but if you're doing, some kind of in-game event and you're having characters run around or things are meant to be timed in a very specific way, then this gives you that kind of minute control. Because if you notice, each delay is different, whereas with invoke repeating, it's a constant. So there are certainly times that you're going to want to use IEnumerator, but since this is basically a conveyor belt functionality where it's meant to have this consistent execution, then you really don't need all that kind of cumbersome aspect of IEnumerator. So this has been the big rewrite that I've been working on for literally hours. So if we come to this now, you can see how concise this is. So that's it. It fits exactly on the screen. So from there to there, that's all it takes to spawn. And a part of this is really just to make sure that they're not standing on top of each other. So let's go through this. So this takes a look at the 3 positions. So order values 0, 1, and 2. So that's plate to the left, the middle, and to the right. We do a random number generation. That number is then checked against the unlocked classes because remember, when you buy ingredients and it makes meals, those meals then unlock the corresponding classes because that's the whole point is certain classes want certain meals. So you generate a random number, you check that position in the unlocked classes to see if it's unlocked. If it is, then we need a second random number because if you recall correctly, there are a certain amount of classes, but each class has 3 versions. The newbie actually has 6 versions. And that way you don't have the same warrior again and again and again. You have 3 different warriors. You don't see the same archer again and again and again. You have 3 different archers. So you'll still have repetition, but not as bad. It won't be just one archer or just one warrior. You've got at least 3 of each. Okay, so this is then determined to determine which specific model, which specific prefab is summoned, because there are 3 in each. Okay, so we then take this number, we're taking it, we're modifying it by 3, and then we're adding the 0, 1, or 2, because again, there are 3 potential iterations of each of the classes. This then says, okay, well, if the order value that you've selected, because remember the order is going to correspond to where the person is standing, if that position is greater than 0, that is, it already has an order, because when you instantiate a character, they have an order associated with them, a lot of the same ones. 111, there we go, 11101 for the warrior. So these are all greater than 0. So that's what this does. This says if it's greater than 0, then do another random number, redo the random customer, the randomized customer calculation, and then check again, because that's what while does. It's saying while this is true. So while this position is greater than 0, then just keep recalculating a new customer and a new customer position until you get to one where it is not greater than 0, because 0 means there's no one standing there at the counter ordering. Okay, so this is just a debug because I was having an issue with the wrong customer showing up. And then this is the actual instantiation. So instantiate, if you recall, all heroes is an array. And so this is pointing to that position. So that's what this is doing. You're trying to figure out which actual prefab you want to instantiate. So that's what you're doing. You're instantiating that one. You're using its default position, its default rotation. And then this, I believe, I don't actually need anymore, because I was working on several versions of this and I didn't want you to summon the same customer, but you won't now anyways, because it's already checking to see if there's anyone standing at that position. So even if you do summon the same customer, it doesn't matter. And this was only checking the previous one, whereas this will check all 3 positions every single time. So yeah, so that little snippet of code isn't needed. And then the rest is just how many enemies have, not enemies, excuse me, how many customers have been spawned. If it's greater than 3, then days increased by 1. And if days graded by 5, then we increment week number. Don't worry about why it's a 4. And then it goes back to the vendor, which is the kitchen scene. So that's it. That is the new spawn wave for the customers. Again, it's much cleaner than using IEnumerator. That the redundancy of all those wait 4 seconds are consolidated into a single argument in the invoke repeating statement, and that this can now focus on making sure that you don't have a bunch of customers standing on top of each other. That it'll max out at 1 per plate, and it'll just keep playing normally. Time will still progress. So I think this is going to be really close to the final code. Like I said, I could potentially have a despawn for the characters, for the customers, but I think that I'll just leave it as it is, because again, if you're taking so long to spawn, to service the customer, that in itself is a penalty, because no new customers will show up until they've been serviced. So it's still, like I said, I'm trying to keep it casual while still having, it does require some effort. So I know I said it many weeks ago, actually a couple months ago, that I was getting close to putting this on itch.io as as early access playable demo, but I do think we're getting close now. That this was the kind of stuff that I really hadn't talked about, the little glitches that I knew were out there that I knew had to be fixed, but I I was being lazy. I didn't really want to do it. So but now I have, and now it's just rinse and repeat, because even though this says spawn week 2, this can do almost all the weeks now. There's a few that are a little bit different because I have added bosses. I'm not sure if I showed you that in the demo, but it is, as you can see, I haven't uprooted all of the IEnumerator because this is basically a work in progress. It is for all heroes, it's like high numbers, like 74, 75. Trying to find one like that. There we go. So uh, all hero 73. So like if we go to here, go to the GM object, 73 is the succubus, 72 is the lich, 74, that's the first customer. You didn't see the first customer today because I believe I showed that in a previous tutorial, and I currently have this set automatically to jump to the second week because I needed to test this new functionality. Okay, so I think that's about it for this video. So yes, I have definitely not given up on it. I'm just kind of really into the weeds of it now, into the minutia, where I don't think this would really be that instructive other than the broad strokes. Okay, so we talked about going from IEnumerator to invoke repeating. And so hopefully this has been helpful. Hope you found this interesting. Like I said, I am still buying assets, and hopefully we'll get this out sometime soon. And please enjoy the rest of your day.